Metamorphoses.
Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that every moral rule, every tradition, every promise of meaning was invented by human beings desperately trying to avoid chaos. There is no cosmic judge, no universal purpose, no final reward waiting at the end. Just you and an indifferent universe. Friedrich Nietzsche believed this moment was coming for all of Western civilization. He wasn't celebrating, he was terrified. He realized that without a divine foundation, Western civilization was about to plummet into a black hole of absolute meaninglessness, a philosophical trap called nihilism. Nietzsche wasn't arguing about whether God literally existed. He was observing that modern science, secularism, and rationalism had eroded humanity's shared belief in God. The danger wasn't atheism itself. The danger was what came after. We had removed the foundation beneath Western morality, but we still expected the building to stand. Nietzsche's answer wasn't to look up into the heavens for a saviour. It was to look in the mirror. He proposed an ultimate evolutionary step for the human spirit. A figure who could stare into the abyss of a meaningless world, smile, and then build their own reality. He called this figure the Übermensch, the Overman. To understand what the Overman is, we first have to understand what it is not. And to do that, we have to look at Nietzsche's ultimate nightmare creature, a creature we recently touched upon in another video called The Last Man. If the Overman is the peak of human potential, the Last Man is the absolute bottom. In his masterpiece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche describes a future society where everyone is completely equal, completely comfortable, and completely dead inside. The last man doesn't want greatness. Greatness requires struggle, pain, and risk. The last man just wants comfort. The last man takes no risks. He has no great passions. He amuses himself with tiny, harmless pleasures to pass the time. If you ask him what love, creation, or longing is, he just blinks, completely confused. He represents total intellectual and spiritual stagnation. Nietzsche looked at the rise of mass media, industrialization, and herd mentality, and warned that society was actively breeding the last man. We see it today, the endless pursuit of the next dopamine hit, the avoidance of any challenging ideas, the desire to blend into the crowd rather than stand out. And Nietzsche believed there were two possible reactions to nihilism. Passive nihilism says, nothing matters, so why bother? Active nihilism says, the old values are dead. Good. Now we can create new ones. The last man is passive nihilism. The Overman is active nihilism, transformed into creation. So how do we escape being the last man? How do we actually step onto the path of the Overman? Nietzsche outlines this journey in a famous allegory called the Three Metamorphoses of the Spirit. It is a psychological evolution that requires you to transform through three distinct stages: the camel, the lion, and finally the child. The journey begins with the camel. The camel is the beast of burden. It kneels down and says, "Load me up." This represents the phase of life where you absorb everything your society, your religion, your parents, and your culture tell you to believe. You carry the weight of tradition. You master the rules, you study the history, and you carry the heavy burdens of responsibility. You cannot become an overman without being a camel first. You have to understand the rules of the world deeply before you can earn the right to break them. But if you stay a camel forever, you die in the desert under the weight of someone else's values. To survive the desert, the spirit must transform into a lion. The lion seeks out its ultimate master, a great golden dragon named Thou Shalt. Every scale on this dragon is a rule, a commandment, a societal expectation that says, this is how you must live. The lion stares down the dragon of tradition and roars back 2 words: I will. This is the phase of rebellion. The lion destroys the old values. It rejects religious guilt, political tribalism, and societal expectations. The lion demands independence. But there is a catch. The lion is fantastic at destroying, but it cannot create. It can say no, but it does not know how to say yes. Many people mistake the lion for the final stage. They spend their entire lives reacting, rebelling, criticizing, tearing things down. But destruction alone creates nothing. For that, the spirit must undergo one final, shocking transformation. The lion wins freedom, but only the child knows what to do with it. So the spirit must become a child. Why a child? Well, because a child represents innocence, forgetfulness, and a new beginning. A child doesn't carry the resentment of the past like the lion, nor the heavy burdens of the camel. A child plays a game, and when a child plays, they create their own rules, their own world, and their own joy out of thin air. The child represents the ultimate goal of the Overman, the ability to create brand new, life-affirming values from scratch, and to look at existence as a sacred game. Once the spirit becomes the child, it unlocks the engine of Nietzsche's entire philosophy, the will to power. Now, this is another term that popular culture completely ruined. People hear will to power and they think of dictators, tyrants, and conquering armies. But to Nietzsche, the highest expression of the will to power isn't dominating others, it is dominating yourself. The child is not naive. The child comes after the burden of tradition and after rebellion. It is the spirit that can finally say yes to existence. Not because life is easy, but because it chooses to create anyway. The Overman channels their inner drive into self-mastery, creative brilliance, and psychological resilience. It's the artist who forces themselves to practice until their fingers bleed. It's the thinker who challenges their own deepest biases. It is the absolute refusal to be a victim of your circumstances. And this brings us to Nietzsche's ultimate test for the Overman, a concept called amor fati, the love of one's fate. To test if you are truly living as an Overman, Nietzsche asks you to imagine a demon creeping into your room at night and whispering this thought into your ear. This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. And there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh must return to you, all in the same succession and sequence. This is the eternal recurrence. If the thought of reliving your exact life, every heartbreak, every boring Tuesday, every failure, over and over for eternity, makes you fall to the ground and curse that demon, then you are not yet an Overman. The Overman has built a life so authentic, so intensely beautiful, and so self-directed that they would gladly scream, play it again to the universe for all eternity. They don't just tolerate suffering, they love their fate because they know that suffering is the very soil from which greatness grows. For Nietzsche, the closest examples were often artists, creators, and individuals who transformed suffering into greatness. Beethoven, Leonardo da Vinci, Goethe, Van Gogh, and Miyamoto Musashi, to name but a few. But now we have to address the elephant in the room. Historically, Nietzsche's concept of the Overman was brutally hijacked. After his mental breakdown, his sister Elizabeth, who was a fierce nationalist, allegedly edited his unpublished notes to fit her own anti-Semitic agenda, though this has been the subject of debate in recent times, with the Nazis later accused of weaponizing the term Übermensch to justify a terrifying ideology of racial supremacy. But anyone who actually reads Nietzsche knows this was a complete betrayal of his work. Nietzsche despised nationalism, hated the herd mentality of political movements, and openly mocked anti-Semitism. The Overman is an individual, spiritual, and psychological goal, not a political or genetic one. So why does the Overman matter right now, in the 2020s? Well, look around. We live in an era where algorithms decide what we look at, what we buy, and what we think. We are more comfortable than any generation in human history, and yet anxiety and nihilism are at an all-time high. We are drowning in options, but starving for meaning. We are constantly entertained and spiritually exhausted. The modern world offers infinite distraction from the terrifying responsibility of creating a meaningful life. We are drifting dangerously close to becoming Nietzsche's last man. We outsource our thinking to political tribes, our creativity to artificial intelligence, and our happiness to likes on a screen. The Übermensch is a wake-up call. It tells us that meaning isn't something you find under a rock or in a textbook. Meaning is something you forge. Becoming the Overman isn't a destination you arrive at. It's an ideal to strive towards. It's a daily choice to stop being the camel carrying everyone else's expectations, to stop being the angry lion just fighting the system, and to start being the child, creating your own life with joy, passion, and absolute responsibility. So take a look at your own life. Look at the rules you follow, the comforts you cling to, and the hardships you face. If a demon told you tonight that you had to live this exact day forever, would you cry out in horror or would you smile? Nietzsche believed humanity was something to be overcome. The question is whether modern civilization is creating stronger human beings or simply more comfortable ones. And Nietzsche believed the greatest battle was not against society, but against the weaker version of yourself. The Overman is not someone who conquers nations. It is someone who continually conquers who they used to be. And maybe that is the real question hidden inside the idea of the Übermensch. If you want to dive deeper into the minds of history's greatest philosophers and figure out how to navigate this chaotic modern world, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and turn on notifications. It really does help the channel to grow. And why not let me know in the comments below, which stage are you at? Which of the metamorphoses are you currently in? The camel, the lion, or the child?